In Canada, when it comes to newcomers, we often hear about settlement services. When you land in Canada, making sure you can access settlement services to get you acquainted with everything. But what about integration services? Making sure that newcomers and immigrants can actually integrate into Canadian culture, share our norms, our values, and just our overall way of life. I feel like we don't talk about integration as much because we are very much focused on this multiculturalism policy that allows different cultures to come here and practice their culture in Canada. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think on some level, a level of integration is absolutely necessary. Take Brampton, Ontario, and Surrey, BC. Almost half of these cities' populations are foreign born, and of them, almost half speak a non official language at home. So, do government programs and services change their official languages to be the language that is mostly spoken at home in these communities? Or do we help communities with their English and French proficiency as just one example? So let's get into this. Take Peel region. Approximately 60% identify as South Asian. And the city of Brampton in 2023 actually passed a motion that added caste as a protected category in Ontario. So it's very common in India that there's discrimination based on caste systems. But I believe Brampton, Ontario is the first city, maybe I'm wrong on this, outside India to add caste as one of the groups that can be discriminated against. And in Surrey, BC, 44% of residents do not speak English or French in their home. The dominant language is Punjabi. And so, is it the responsibility of municipalities and other government bodies to start tailoring their services to the community and the language that's spoken? Now, I don't think any other country in the world does settlement the way Canada does. We help out with housing, language. There's tons of cultural community activities and events. I believe in 2024, the city of Surrey actually made sure that city communications were multilingual. Festivals and heritage events occupy greater budgets of both municipalities as well. And so if you're coming from abroad, specifically from India, and you're landing in Surrey, BC or Brampton, there's a lot of services the municipality is doing. But then there's integration. Canada does have two official languages, English and French. Are there services in Brampton and Surrey funded to the same extent as making sure that programs and services are multilingual? Is there a concerted effort for Indian residents to brush up on their English, to have a better command of it, to learn French? Are children going to schools where it's not just Indian kids as well? Are they mixing with other kids from different and diverse backgrounds? Are there volunteering opportunities for young people and adults outside these cities for city residents to really learn some of the other challenges that other Canadians are going through? These may seem small. Over the long term, this can actually lead to social cohesion, fissures, and fractures in our society. Take this, for example. Nearly 77% of newcomers say Canadians share their values on human rights to a great extent. But after 20 years, that number drops to 62%. Does that mean over time, newcomers feel like Canadians are out of touch on human rights? And language is one of those things where command is more important necessarily than literacy, if that makes sense. Say you pass a language test and suddenly it says, okay, you are now literate in English. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean your command of the language matters. And for many Indian newcomers that settle in Brampton and Surrey, many times they're in jobs where they're front facing, they're doing customer service, they're interacting with Canadians who are not Indian, and they're expecting a high level or a greater level of command of the language than just literacy. So in many ways, it's kind of like many newcomers are being set up to fail because they were not told that command of the language is more important than literacy. And if you are entering in a customer service position, your command means more. But the tension a lot of Canadians are feeling is because of who benefits and who pays. Now, who benefits from this? From my perspective, politicians benefit quite a lot. They see newcomers coming to their municipalities, and the more settlement services are included, chances are the more likely these communities may vote for them. They can grow budgets for cultural and heritage events. They can grow budgets for community spaces. They can grow budgets for more multilingual services. All of these show greater outreach to these communities, potentially buying votes in the process. And of course, employers benefit from this. They get a steady stream of newcomers, of a labor pool who are younger, ready to work, ready to earn their keep, maybe work longer hours, multiple shifts. And because they're temporary foreign workers, they're not permanent residents yet, chances are they're more willing to work longer hours with less labor restrictions. Now, of course, this is just an assumption on my part, but employers would naturally love this steady stream of people coming in. But of course, taxpayers are feeling the frustration because they're not too sure how this is actually going to work out. They're wondering what happened to Canadian cultural values, what happened to English and French, what happened to cultural assimilation. Instead, they're seeing more settlement and not integration into Canada. So there's some really interesting research on all of this. Some urban planners say that when there are these enclaves of communities, this can actually help lower the barriers. Job hunts are much shorter, and there's a safer start to get them started in Canada. They're not starting from cold. They've got friends and family that have broader networks that at least can introduce them and get them hired much more quickly had they not had those connections. But other sociologists mention that social cohesion can only exist when government funds what's called bridging programs. Now, bridging programs are things like sharing recreation spaces, mentoring mixed language projects, co-located rec centers raising neighborhood trust scores. These things can happen, but the bridging programs are needed. So if you do end up in Brampton or Surrey, there needs to be some integration with communities outside of those cities so that you can fully integrate into Canada. So it's not necessarily about your ethnicity or your background. It's that this clustering of Indian immigrants in Canada's two cities of Surrey, BC, and Brampton, Ontario, has actually shifted the policy that the municipalities are doing, focused much more on settlement and not integration. And perhaps that's where we can start asking our politicians for more integration services so that Canadians can feel like they're not, that immigrants are not only adding to the economy, which we absolutely need and love them for, but that there's this willingness by all to fully adopt and integrate into Canada's trusted values, morals, and ethics, how we treat each other. We've long said that this is a country without an identity, but I'd be hard pressed to go anywhere and not have a Canadian tell me precisely what Canadian values are. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think there needs to be more integration services than settlement in these communities? Let me know what you think in the comment section below.